You asked for it. This is what you wanted. This is my game design on my new RPG based on this, which you guys absolutely loved. Hello and welcome to each and every single one of you, all of you. Yes, absolutely welcome to today's show. I ran a poll on the YouTube community page. Polls. We love our polls. Yes, we do. I especially do because mine's from Poland. So there we go. Now, with regards to the polls, you voted one of the things that you'd like to see more is system design on this channel. Now, if you cast your minds back several years ago, I created Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is a diceless role-playing game that uses an action economy in order to work. Now, a lot of folks that I have spoken to about Bounty Hunter, that have played Bounty Hunter, they absolutely adore it. They love it. They're like, yes, Bounty Hunter's brilliant. We love it. We want more Bounty Hunter. I would love to do more Bounty Hunter. But there are forces in this world beyond our control. Yes, beyond our control. Such as Dungeons and Dragons going, oh, yeah, screw everybody. We're going to be a giant corporate and do what giant corporates do. Which is absolutely fine. Kudos to them for being a giant corporate. I wish we were all giant corporates and we would retire and do nothing except figure out how to make more money. That's not the point. The point is that everybody and their uncle and aunt and family members are releasing their own role-playing systems. Why not? If you can come up with a system that works for you and your table, that's what we should be playing, right? There are literally hundreds and hundreds of role-playing systems. So why would you make another one? Well, because the next one that you create might be the one that solves all kinds of fundamental problems. Because every single role-playing system, doesn't matter which one you play, will ultimately always have some kind of flaw. It won't do exactly that, or it won't do exactly this. Because, as you already know from watching this channel, there is an infinity of things that we could possibly want to do, and not every role-playing system is ever going to be able to accommodate for all of them. It just isn't. The book would be like this. It would be huge, gigantic, titanic. It really would be huge. And in so being, that would be its problem, is that it's too big and it's too complicated and it's too overbearing for us to even get our heads around this giant mammoth of rules. So you see, there is never going to be a perfect system. There is only ever going to be a system that works for you and your group. So it's about designing there first before you go anywhere else. As I said, Bounty Hunter, action economy, the characters have 20 action points, which they then, if they have a skill, there's a list of skills, and if you have the skill, you spend the action point, you succeed. There is no chance of failure. So if you have ranged attack and you shoot at someone, and you happen to have ranged attack as a skill, and you spend one action point, you will hit them and deal damage. It's as simple as that. But it is a symmetrical system, which means that they will be able to shoot you, and that they will also hit if they have the skill and they spend the action point. Pew, 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 pa-dum. Both dead if you're acting at the same time. So there's a little mechanic to determine who acts first. It costs you some health, but it might just allow you to shoot first. And in that case, then your name's Han Solo, and you win. Right? Bingo. Done. No questions asked. So the simple system allows you to do a lot of things. But is it complex enough? Does it have the legs to be able to be played for months and months and months and for years and years and years and years? Well, could that be a failing of this system? If so, I'm happy for that to be the failing. It allows you to run one-shots. Anyway, so that's the idea of the original Bounty Hunter, which, yes, you can buy off of our website. Hard copy, not so much anymore. It's growing out, but you can get PDFs for free. Well, no, you can't get them for free. You can get them forever, is what I meant to say. You can get them forever. I decided that with this whole OGL thing, it was time for me to release the fantasy version of Bounty Hunter, called Mage Hunter. Because when you're onto a thing, you stick with the thing, right? Well, that's actually something that's very, very important. When you are designing a game, if you have multiple iterations of that game, if you are expanding that game, it is critical that it sits within the style and within the approach that you have already done. If you look at Modiphius's games, they all look the same. All the rule books look similar. They use the same mechanics, except they change them here and there for flavoring. You look at Free League's games, all of the different settings, all of the different things, they still all fundamentally feel like a free league production. It's important for us to keep that so that our fans, when they go, oh, we absolutely adore your system, yay, great, I've got 5 more, and you know they're mine because they look the same. So it's not about changing stuff up, it's about keeping it the same. And that's exactly what we're doing for Mage Hunter. The rules still work the same way, except we've tweaked it slightly. We have to adapt and we have to adjust and we have to incorporate. So first things first, people went, this whole idea of it being symmetrical. Symmetry is great. It makes you have to pause before going into combat. Because if you go into combat and you're just shooting and they're just shooting, one of you will eventually die. And there's no guarantee that it's not going to be you. The idea was that the symmetry can become a little mundane in terms of if your players are clever and they investigate and they interrogate and they ask questions and they look around and they do their homework before they go into a scenario, they usually will have the upper hand, which usually will mean that they will have a successful outcome. So a lot of feedback came back and said, can we change it ever so slightly? We still want it to be a yes or no. We still want it to be basically a guarantee, but we'd like a little bit of tension coming in the decision of spending action points. Now, the rule was you spend an action point, you succeed. That's it. So what could we do? What did we do? Well, what we've done, and we are still playtesting, by the way, Mage Hunter is nowhere near its release yet. It's nowhere near ready, although September is a great month to think about Kickstarters. Anyway, so what could we do? We've decided on a system of 1 to 5. So now the DM might be able to say, you want to hack into the Imperial Facilities computer banks? Well, no, you don't, because that doesn't apply for Bounty Hunter. It applies for Mage Hunter. See what happens? You get confused between the systems. So with Mage Hunter, it's like, you want to decode the ancient arcane writings in this book? That's relatively difficult. Now that is a cue for the player to go, ooh, okay, if it's relatively difficult, I'm actually going to spend 4 action points to succeed on this. And then the DM will say, well, the difficulty was 3, so your 4 wins. Well done, you spend your 4 action points and you decode it. So it's made the success much more interesting now because you've invested more in it. Will this last? Will it not last? I'm not convinced. And here is another thing that I have discovered when we are talking about designing role-playing systems, designing these kinds of things, is you can put this stuff in and 3 or 4 or 5 months later you go, I don't know what I was thinking, that was dumb. Or at least you go, yeah. If you take it out later on and the game doesn't change at all, don't put it back. It means that it wasn't really needed. But sometimes we need to add these things in just so that we can test them and go, actually, that was a good idea, or actually, it was a bad idea. So don't ever think about putting something into your system and talk yourself out of it before you've tried it. Some things are obvious, they're just never going to work. But on the other hand, some things really, really need to be tested. So this whole idea of upping the ante has come from years worth of testing Bounty Hunter and players going, well, if we make it variable, it makes it more interesting. Now, what that also means is contested roles, you can choose to spend up to, and the limit is 5 action points here, which is a quarter of your starting action points if you are a level 1 character, or if you're a base character. So it's important that that is a really critical outcome to achieve. It now means that contested roles also, and I say contested roles, it's an anachronism, isn't it? Well, it's not even an anachronism, it's just inaccurate. There are no roles. Contested skills now have the ability to succeed or fail depending on how much you commit. So you go, well, why don't I always just commit maximum? If I'm going to shoot someone, I'm just going to commit 5. Well, because with your bow and arrow, which is now in Mage Hunter, you're only doing 4 damage with an arrow. So you've spent 5 to deal 4. That's bad math. You should spend 3 to deal 4 if you want to have just a little edge. So there's where the tension starts coming in, is where you're going, oh, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't actually. Maybe I should hold back and just hope that they are holding back, or just try and get them to dodge out of the way. Again, we don't know how this is going to work until we've play tested it more thoroughly. Okay, so that was the one thing. The second thing that we decided to add in is reputation. And reputation was meant to be this last-ditch effort. This, I am down, I am dying, but I will, with my last breath, spit at thee. Come on! Anyway, the idea of reputation was, as your reputation increases, not only do you get more action points and more renown and more favor and it's all the other stuff that goes into it, but now you also get a reserve of additional action points. Traditionally, when your action points reached 0, well, your character would pass out, and if they took any more damage, your character would die. Now, the idea is that when you reach 0, you tap into your reserve points, into your reputation points. Now, those reputation points are literally, well, everyone thought he was dead, but he just somehow got up. They allow you to stand up and to have a certain amount of points that you can then spend as action points. But when those reach 0, you are absolutely finished. Already we've got feedback from the system, because I was like, I think that's kind of cool. You know, it's like, my last action, I will do this. But players have already come back and said, why should we keep track of reputation points and action points? Why not just add to your action points? It doesn't really add much flavoring. It's more of a technical thing. I'll be fine. Of course I'm fine. Yes, we'll cut it out. If it's stupid, it's stupid. Don't be precious about anything that you're adding in. Until the book is finished, and even after it's finished, you should still quite happily be able to throw away stuff and go, yeah, it doesn't work. Like at the moment, we are really struggling. I say we. I am really struggling. I love the idea of the characters only being able to carry a limited number of things. Bounty Hunter has that system. You can only carry up to 10 things, and backpacks allow you to carry a little bit more. But generally speaking, it's a limit of 10 things. Where does that come from? I don't think you can see them on the bookshelf. No, you can't. Yes, there you go. See these books here? Those are Lone Wolf Choose Your Own Adventure books written by Joe Dever. Amazing, amazing series that I read as a teenager and as a kid, and that influenced everything that I do. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. His books were based on his role-playing. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. He had a hard limit of the amount of equipment that you could carry. And I remember being so frustrated as I got to higher levels in the books 1 through 25, I think it is now, Home Guard Press, there you go. The books limited you. And sometimes you'd be going, oh, do I want a potion or do I want a chainmail shirt? Do I want a this? Do I want a that? And that was a decision-making process, which was, as frustrating as it was also quite enjoyable, because later on you'd go, yes, I knew I should have taken that Potion of Lamspur. I am a brilliant strategist. With Bounty Hunter, that was fine, because Bounty Hunters, usually everything incorporates into their armor and stuff, so there's not a lot of them to actually carry. You know, they don't have backpacks full of things. Certainly, there's no real image of the Bounty Hunter having a giant backpack that they run around with. Fantasy, however, that's a slightly different story, because there is no press a button and suddenly the whole thing opens up. It's a tent, it's a sleeping bag, it's a this, it's that. So the item of 10 is getting in the way. Am I going to drop this? Most likely. I haven't yet found a scenario where it's fun to go, no, you can't. Now, when you look at other games, specifically at Dungeons & Dragons, where they have the whole encumbrance idea, and it's like, well, this weighs this much, this weighs this much, you can carry this, you can carry that. Once you get to a certain limit, you fall over. We don't have the luxury of having a strength score. We do have the strength skill, which arguably you could say allows you to carry an extra 50 kilos or 50 pounds or whatever metric you're using. But I have never encountered players who have gone, oh, you know what? Actually, I can't pick up that because then I'll be a pound over my weight allowance. They pick it up and add it to their backpack. And I've only ever had one GM, and it's you, Mark. I know he doesn't watch his channel, so I'm safe. who has ever gone, show me your character sheets, and I want to see the mathematics of your encumbrance, you cheating little bastards! No one, never happened. Unless your group does that, in which case, kudos to you, and fantastic. That's, I would say, personally, from my experience, that is the exception. That is not the norm. So what do we do with equipment then? Do we just go, you know what, folks, no one bloody cares, just keep whatever you like? Well, that's possible. Or do we go, this is a heavy item, you can only have 2 heavy items. This is a medium item, you can have as many medium items as you like. Or you can have 10 medium items, and this is a light. But then it becomes overly complicated just to pick up a tent. Do we really care? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself on a regular basis. Do you really care, or are you just trying to be clever? Aha! Well, there we go. Right, so I'll have to rewrite that section. Rewrite. That is what rules writing is all about, by the way. It is just rewriting. Okay, so what is new? Now, if you watched all the way through to this part here, what are we adding in? We're adding in 2 things, which Bounty Hunter didn't have. The first one, we're calling them disciplines. And what disciplines are different classes, effectively. So we have martial classes, we have mage classes, we have blood mage classes, and we've got the intermixed classes, like, the name's gone out of my head, Shaddix, for example, a Shaddix. Which is a sort of a rogue thief combo kind of thing. The martial classes don't have any magic. The magic users don't have all of the access to the martial abilities, which are quite powerful, and so on and so forth. And so that's what we're kind of doing. You choose a discipline and you get powers from that discipline in conjunction with skills and things. And I think it's really fun. Once you get to reputation level 5, you can choose a second discipline and you combine the 2 disciplines together. Again, I think it's really fun, and we've worked out a really cute little mechanic that allows you to combine the names together. So you take the first 3 letters of the one and the second 3 letters of the other. They're all 6 letters long, so it allows you to do those kind of combinations, and then you get some really cool new names that emerge out of that as you forging a new path of combining disciplines together. So disciplines I really like. I love them. Playtesting has come back and gone, yes, we hate them. No, they didn't say hate. They just went, well, we would never, ever play the martial classes because they suck. So I've got to go back and look at it and go, yes, I remember why. I do. There was a mechanic that I had originally put in which allowed the martial classes to absorb magic from the surrounding area and then use it to basically nullify any incoming attacks. But I got rid of that system quite a while ago, version 1 or 2. We're on version 4, by the way. I got rid of it because it was getting in the way and it was getting too complicated and it was just getting messy and But in removing that, I've now removed the entire benefit that the martial classes have. So now I have to go back and I have to look at what was in there, look at the idea, look at the essence and go, okay, how do I capture that? But how do I allow the martial class to do that? So I've still got quite a lot of work to do there. It's very exciting, and I do love the idea of the disciplines. And if we ever went back to Bounty Hunter, we would introduce disciplines into Bounty Hunter straight away. The other big thing, and I'm worried about the time of this video, but you know what? In the poll that I mentioned before, people said, just do you. Okay, good. So I'm doing me. Other thing that we've added in. I personally love it. Players initially go, oh, that's brilliant. That's wonderful. And then after the first session, they go, oh, it's terrible. It's so bad. It's awful. I hate it. Magic. Now, I've trialed this idea in another system of mine called the Try system and the Try-Fi system, because I was working on that one for quite a while and it was going places, but it wasn't going anywhere interesting. And there we go. So I tried it there. And it worked for players who were hyper intelligent, who were hyper cool, and it did not work for the DM, nor did it work for players who were not so sharp. What it is I have a series of tables. Range, a number of targets, a number of damage, distance, weight, etc., etc. All of the variables that go into crafting magic spells are listed on the table. And for each incremental advancement of the spell, so if you increase the range by 100 feet, or if you increase the number of targets by 1, there is a different action point cost. So you choose your spells. You design your spells on the fly. You go, oh, we really need to freeze that door shut. What is the spell for freezing door? No, you don't look up the spell for freezing door shut. You go, okay, the door, and I'm looking at my door. The door is 2.5 foot wide. Call it 3 feet for easy calculations. 6 foot high. Okay, great. So that's a standard. That's one target. It's a standard humanoid kind of size of things. I want to freeze it in place for 5 rounds. Okay, so you look at 5 rounds. You take your action points. You look at one object. You take your action point. You're not doing any damage to the door. You are trying to prevent it from being opened or from so it's it's something to do with strength. So you look up the modifier for the strength of the door. Okay, it's going to cost me 10 action points to hold this door shut for 10 rounds, or just to cast ice over it so that it stays shut for 10 rounds. That's one option. The other option is, okay, I'm going to morph or warp the door so it can't be opened. That doesn't mean that I have to take any time. It's just naturally going. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that the intelligence of the spell caster and by default the player starts to come into effect. It's more efficient to warp the door or to warp the stonework around the door than it is to freeze the door in place. Unless you specifically want the ice to do something for you over and above holding that door, there are better ways of doing it. The trick, however, comes in is so far as the players are now looking at tables and building spells. They are also presented with the infinity problem. You can cast an infinity of spells, so that means you don't know which spell to cast. But I feel that this is the most representative of what magic could be like. If you think that magic is a real thing, it's this sort of ethereal thing that if you have the power of your mind, you can focus it and shape it to doing whatever you want, this is as close as I can get to representing that. Now, already we know that there are going to be problems because, as I have mentioned already. So what are we going to do about it? Do we scrap the magic system? No, we don't. We leave the magic system in place, but we now know we have to add in 50 or 60 of the most common magical spells that we can think of. A dart of fire, and it has this range, this much damage, and it costs that much. It's a simple little lookup table. It's a simple little description. It fits within the framework. But we also now have a beautiful framework for being able to create any spell, write it down, and know exactly how much it's going to cost. This was one of the major issues that I have had with a lot of role-playing systems, is you go, okay, this is a high-level spell, but it really is not that useful. There's much better spells that are lower down the level line that are more versatile. This is a one-trick pony in a very one type of situation, but it's such a high-level spell. It was very, very frustrating. As opposed to some other high-level spells where you're like, this is world-ending. And it's just clumped in with something that's not anywhere near world-ending because they ran out of levels, right? So that is where Mage Hunter is currently sitting. We've got these things, everything else is kind of running fine because it's based off of what worked really well for Bounty Hunter. Next steps, more playtesting, and more playtesting. And the frustrating part is that I can't playtest with the playtesters. The whole point of playtesting the rules is to see whether some random folks, and I've got 2 groups that are just amazing, whether they can take what's written and turn it into a game. If they can't do that, then there's problems. So I have to wait until the players are confident that they understand the rules, that they understand the system, and they are having fun whilst playing it. Then, and only then, can I sit at their tables and go, oh, you got it completely wrong. That doesn't work like that at all. Or, you got this absolutely right. Now, already I start to see some of that feedback coming in on the review notes that the playtesters send back to me. They're like, but this seems overpowered. And my comment is, because you didn't read the earlier chapter, and then I look at the earlier chapter and I go, because that's one sentence buried in the middle of a paragraph. Take it out of that paragraph, make it its own space. So again, just a refinement. Thank you for watching all the way through to the end. A massive, massive thank you to all of my patrons. We are jointly writing a book, the patrons and I. It's pretty damned awesome. They're voting on a whole bunch of input stuff. I'm taking everything that I have talked about on this channel and I'm applying it to this little short book that we're going to be writing over the next 12 months. Each month is an extra chapter. At the end of that chapter, the patrons are like getting to vote on what should be happening next, what should the outcome be. We're looking at it from a narrative perspective, from a fun perspective, from a good idea, bad idea perspective. Super fun. There's a video that's going to be coming out on that on its own, so watch out for that in the near future. Until next time, thank you for watching. And if you have any ideas on what I've been speaking about, or if you're writing your own system and you're looking for playtesters, leave comments down below or join our discord.gg/greatgm channel. Hundreds of people, thousands of people are there ready to playtest your system. So come along, share it, let's see what's out there. And until next time, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming!